Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Roll the Dice with Dave. All of you out there on Facebook, really appreciate you guys turning in. Thank you so much. All of you that are also tuning in on my YouTube channel, Roll the Dice with Dave, welcome. So glad you guys could join us. I know there is a presidential debate going on, but tonight we're going to be talking about, I think, a little bit more of a relaxed, fun topic. We're going to be talking a little bit about wine and beverages. So thank you for joining us this evening. Tonight, I also ask that you guys like and share. So if you are out there on Facebook, please make sure you like my fan page, Roll the Dice with Dave. Also, there is the YouTube channel, Roll the Dice with Dave. Please go out there and subscribe. Don't hesitate to share. Please let everybody know that I am trying to be the change that I want to see in the world, and I would love for you guys to be a part of this. Also, while we're doing the broadcast, feel free to use the hashtag Roll the Dice with Dave if you are watching live. And if you end up catching the replay, don't hesitate to use hashtag replay just to let me know that you were watching the show at a later time. Also looking forward to interacting with all of you while you are here on Roll the Dice with Dave. So comments will be broadcast shared and this give us a chance to have a little bit more interaction. If you are interested in seeing a certain topic discussed, or if you're interested in being a guest on the show, please mention that in the comments. You can go to the fan page and let me know, or feel free to send me an email at rollthedicewithdave@gmail.com. Now, I also wanted to bring this up because this is a big impact in our industry. Disney has made the announcement that they're looking at laying off over 28,000 employees. Most of those are going to be coming from the U.S. parks. This is a major impact to the hospitality and tourism industry. Hopefully, when we get through to the other side after this pandemic, things will go back to normal. But please keep individuals that are continuously being furloughed or laid off. Please keep them in your thoughts. And we're wishing them nothing but the best. And if you can help out in any way you can, please don't hesitate to do so. I also want to thank all of you that have been tuning in to Roll the Dice with Dave. I really appreciate all the responses and comments I've gotten and all the feedback to try to make the show better, and also all the interactions. Really do appreciate everybody that has turned in. So we are getting ready to do this. We're going to try and be the change we want to see in the world. And I'm really excited about the guests that we have today. We have Alley Burkett from Precept Wines. So what I'm going to do is bring her into the studio and move us into it. Hey, Alley, it is so good to see you. If you don't mind, before we really get jumping into everything, do you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself and who you are?
Well, my name's Alley Burkett, and I am a Flagler College alumni. So I wanted to thank you, Dave, for having me on the show. And I come to you from Ponte Vedra, Florida, and just a girl in the wine industry, just trying to do her thing during unprecedented times here. So I've been doing what I do now for 17 years. I've been in the wine industry, doing various different things. My current role is regional sales director for a wonderful company called Precept Wine. So you probably won't see a label that says Precept Wine in a store because we own multiple different brands and make a bunch of different wines. But we'll talk about that a little later. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right. So also going a little bit more into it, you are a mother and a wife. Yeah. And you are also a regional sales rep. How do you manage all that with also a pandemic going on? How are you managing all this right now?
It's a lot of just pulling up your sleeves and getting through it. My husband is a commander in the Navy, so he's the captain of a ship right now, and he is currently deployed. And luckily, this industry allows me to or has allowed me to find a job wherever we've been stationed. And so that's a great thing about the industry. But yeah, and I have two young children, they're 2 and 4. And so, having a demanding job and having small children and not having really any family around that can readily help out, and my husband gone, it's a lot of juggling and just a lot of prioritizing and just making it work. I mean, everybody's dealing with their own stuff now, and somehow we all do it, and we all get through. It's just kind of survival on a day-to-day basis, right?
No, I get that. I can't imagine how difficult it is. And also, I want to make sure I mention that please pass along, thank your husband for his service. We really do appreciate him and the sacrifice that you both are making for this country. We really do appreciate
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
So moving into the next little piece, I know, you and I have had a chance to interact a couple of different times, and we've stayed in contact. You actually had a big impact on my alcohol consumption behavior over kind of the quarantine, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But can you just talk a little bit about your role models or people that you look up to? And it doesn't necessarily have to just stick to the wine industry, but who are some people that you look up to?
They actually happen to be all in the industry, only because when you've been in this industry for so long, and it's also one of those industries that sort of slowly entangles itself into your lifestyle. So it's like your work becomes your life in a lot of ways. And listen, this industry is predominantly male, and it has been, and I probably always will be, right, on some level. But even just in recent times when I started out, I mean, my first job, I think there were 4 other women in my whole sales division of like 200 sales reps. It was one of those situations where you just have to be really resilient and really learn to stand up for yourself. So along the way, I've been very fortunate to meet other women that have sort of taken me under their wing and mentored me. And one of them is, her name's Pamela Ford, and she works for Silverado Winery in Napa right now, which, as we know, right now Napa is going through a tough time. But there are very few women that have climbed up to executive roles in this industry, and she's one of them. And she's done so without compromising herself or her personal integrity, and I really admire that. So I would say, not a lot of you would know her, but you probably have seen the wine or know the wineries.
Okay, cool. Now this next little piece I want to throw out there and ask. So 3 words that people who know you would use to describe you.
Drunk. I was kidding.
Right.
I would say resilient would probably be the first one. Capable and driven.
Oh, those are 3 really good words. I appreciate you sharing that. I want to give you my 3 words because I remember when we first met. Hopefully you don't mind me telling the story, but I just think it's great. I asked you to come and speak to my class, and I think you were wearing jeans, and you were like, "Oh my God, I'm wearing jeans to speak in front of a class. I look like one of the students." And I was like, "No, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it." And as soon as you got up there, you were just so knowledgeable about everything. That the students just sat there and they were just absorbing everything you said. So your knowledge, you definitely were the smartest person in the room when it came to beverage, understanding trends, and everybody was just captivated with every word you said. The second thing that I noticed was just your passion for the industry and what you do. That was very evident. And the students noticed that as well, because they're always asking, when is Alley going to come back to campus? And the third one that I really think is, again, a testament to the level of passion and knowledge you have. You were very relatable. Again, the students felt very comfortable coming up to you, speaking to you about the industry, especially the last time you came to campus, which I think was about a week before we shut down in March. So it was about a week before we shut down, and you were there, and we were just having a good old conversation, so much so that the students even forgot that time had run out in class. So we were past the 50-minute mark, and they were sitting there talking about alcohol trends and beverage consumption.
They were coming up with great ideas. Remember that?
Yes, they really were. So the relatable aspect of you to the students, I think, was very evident. And those would be the 3 words I would use to describe you. And I'm glad I got to know you, glad that we're developing this relationship, because I think you and I are going to be friends for a long time to come. And the students are going to benefit from this beyond, I think, what they realize. So thank you so much for all you've done for me and the department so far.
Happy to do it.
So I want to ask you this. So what drove you to get into the beverage industry, and what drives you to now continue to stay in the beverage industry?
It's interesting. I did not go to Flagler College thinking, okay, I'm going to graduate and I'm going to be a wine sales rep and I'm going to do this and that. It kind of found me. So in college, I was a member of the Students in Free Enterprise club, which is kind of like a business club at Flagler. It's now called Enactus. And we would go to these national competitions, and at these competitions were these huge recruitment fairs. So when I was a sophomore, I was actually approached by E&J Gallo. And my junior year, we went back to the national competition, touched base with the recruiters there again as well. And then by the time my senior year rolled around, I had a job offer, and I started as a rep for E&J Gallo down in Miami 3 weeks after I graduated college. So it really was sort of one of those things where if that had not happened, to be honest, I don't know what I would have been doing, because I don't think I really quite knew myself when I was a junior or a senior. I was still feeling things out. So it kind of came to me, and I feel so fortunate that happened. And it's one of those things where once you're in this industry, you're in. And if you have a certain personality and a certain drive, and you can really make your own way and kind of find your niche within the industry, there's nothing else I'd rather do. There has never been a time where I have thought to myself, man, even when I was so burnt out or whatever, like, I got to get out of this industry. I got to find something else to do. Like that has never occurred to me. So I feel like I'm one of those very, very fortunate people that like immediately found what they're passionate about and found the industry that they love enough to sort of stick with it and just, work your way up. So I really feel very fortunate to be in that position.
That's awesome. I tell you what, that's a great story. So, we got to know a little bit about you, and I now want to transition into some of the topics that you and I had mentioned that we were going to talk about. So the first thing, kind of getting into your thoughts about alcohol, but can you just tell me like what role alcohol maybe played in your family's life as you were growing up? When were you maybe first exposed to the idea of, oh, here's alcohol, drinking, from a family structure? And, me being Latino, I know for me, a lot of times the idea of the alcohol was almost like a rite of passage, right? Like the first time you got to sit down and drink with the adults, it was this rite of passage. And it was like, oh, okay, I'm not seen as a little kid anymore. I'm seen as an adult having a drink with the other adults in the family. Can you just give a little description of kind of what it was like for you and your family and the role alcohol maybe played in that dynamic?
Yeah, listen, I grew up in Rhode Island, and my dad's the youngest of 11. I think he might be watching. Hi, Paulie D, if you're watching. My dad's name is Paulie D. He was the youngest of 11 from a large Italian family. My mother's one of 6 from a large French Canadian family. There's a lot of French Canadians up in Rhode Island, and both nationalities enjoy imbibing. It's interesting, though, my dad's side of the family, and subsequently my dad growing up, wasn't a big drinker at all, maybe a beer here or there. My mom's family like drank beer. They were old school, tough, hearty French Canadian stock, and they drank they just drank beer. And so actually wine wasn't really a huge presence growing up for me. Alcohol certainly was around me at family functions and things like that. But my parents weren't the type that, at the end of the night or at dinner had alcohol. So really for me, I didn't drink at all in high school. I wasn't cool enough to go to any parties and do that like most high school kids do. So really for me, I didn't really drink until college, and when I started to drink, I was, obviously a little older I guess, than most. And I started with beer, but I quickly got into it. So it was just like a personal preference. So I was kind of that dorky kid, like sipping wine out of a solo cup at a party at Flagler. I mean, it doesn't make any sense at all. That's kind of what I've always been, so it's fine.
So we do have a question from Annie, and she asked, so what are you drinking currently? I see the glass and I'm nosy.
Okay. I'm nosy too. It's okay. So in honor of tonight's podcast, I decided to pop open one of my wineries' hidden gems. It's called Battle Creek Vineyards. Um, Battle Creek Cellars, excuse me. And it's a single vineyard Pinot Noir from our Yamela vineyard. It's an Oregon Pinot Noir. It's fantastic. Oregon and Washington right now are producing some of the best Pinot Noirs you'll ever want to taste right now. They are, the past couple of vintages have been perfect. We have an awesome female winemaker at Battle Creek Cellars. Her name's Sarah Cabot.
Oh, so it's cellars, not vineyards. I typed in vineyards. I'm sorry.
Battle Creek Cellars, and I'm drinking their Yamela Vineyards single vineyard Pinot Noir.
Okay, so is it fair to say that if you're drinking it, it's a good thing?
Yes.
Let's go out there and check it out, right?
Yes. It's
okay.
Fantastic.
All right. So another thing that I wanted to touch on is, you talked about a little bit, hey, my family and some of the social norms. So where do you see kind of alcohol or just beverage consumption in general as far as our normal social everyday lives? But what part do you see it playing right now?
It's interesting. COVID has changed not only our industry, I think, forever, but also people's lives. I mean, listen, in many different ways. I think alcohol is going to become a little bit more meaningful to people. I think it's going to be more about quality and not quantity. I think that people are going to find different and new things to celebrate and imbibe. So it's not just going to be your normal holidays or New Year's Eve or whatever. I think it's going to be, people are going to be wanting some levity in their lives right now. So I think that people are just going to be changing their habits, and they're going to be drinking more often maybe, or they're going to find other reasons to celebrate.
Okay. So just going to be a little bit more of a big piece in there. So I want to move into another question I have, just kind of getting your thoughts on alcohol. So what guides your decisions to drink or not drink a certain type of alcohol or wine, beer, spirit? What are the factors that Alley goes through and says, okay, these are the things that I'm looking for. This is why I drink this, or these are the things I'm looking for. It doesn't have it. I'm not going to drink that.
Listen, I along with maturity and experience comes a level of pickiness in a way. So back, in the early days of my career, and like I said, my career blends very much into my life. It has, it more so when I was younger, but it just is, they're so interchangeable for me. Before it was I felt pressure maybe to drink a certain thing or drink something if I was out with, my teammates or my boss or, out with a customer. And I think with a little bit of maturity comes hey, life is too short to not drink something that you don't enjoy. Right. So if I'm at someone's house, and they offer me a glass of wine, and I want a glass of wine, of course I'm going to have that glass of wine. But if I'm not, if I'm at a dinner with, my boss and a customer of ours or an account of ours, I'm going to drink what I want to drink. I'm not going to, I don't do shots. I don't like them. I don't like the way it makes me feel. I never have. I've not, I'm not going to do a shot because everybody else is doing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, it really is a way to kind of assert your own power. This is what I'm going to put in my body. This is what I want to put in my body. And this is how much of it that I want to do or put in my body, so I'm not going to if I want a glass of wine, I'll have one. If I want a bottle of wine, I will drink that bottle. I've gotten too old and too jaded at this point to please people, you know what I mean? So it really, for me, it's, if I'm going to choose to drink, listen, I'm going to be 40 in a couple of weeks here. And so I'm being much more conscious of what I put in my body. So if I'm going to choose to drink, it's going to be good. And it's going to be something that I want to enjoy.
No, I like the way you said, and gosh, I wish I remember exactly. So you said it's power. Do you remember exactly what you said? Because I thought it was.
it's a power. It's the power to assert your own
That's it.
decision
Yes.
despite what everybody else would expect you to do or want you to do, right? So it's just a way to say, hey, like this is what I'm choosing to do, and I don't care what you think about it.
We could probably make T-shirts out of that. Put like a big
Right?
glass of wine, and the wording says "the power to assert your own," and on the
Yeah.
back it just says "Be Alley." Right? It says "Be
Be
Alley."
Alley.
We could probably sell a buttload of those T-shirts
I love
with
it.
a big wine glass in the front.
I love it.
So
That's
I
great.
like that. So I want to kind of shift a little bit because alcohol is a big part of what's become part of my life, and being in the hospitality and tourism industry, being in food and beverage, food and wine pairings, but also drinking casually when you're sitting around and drinking something. So I like to drink what I like to drink. I'm not one, and I'll try certain things, but there's certain things that I'm just like, yeah, I'm not going to drink that. So um, recently, my oldest daughter was home from college, and this was when I did the White Claw experiment, and we'll get into that a little bit more, right?
Like
So we did the White Claw experiment, and so I'm home and I'm sitting here drinking a White Claw, and my daughter goes, "Ooh, can I taste?" So she's 19, technically not supposed to be drinking. So I was like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead and try it. Let's see what happens." Do you see yourself kind of being like that, or are you going to be, nope, not until you're 21? I'm sorry. And it's more of just a curiosity thing, because I never thought I'd be that way, but I'm sitting here with my college age daughter. It's COVID, right? You're like, the world is going to hell in a handbasket anyway, right? So yeah, you want to try it? Yeah, go ahead and try it, right?
So my kids are so young. My kids are 2 and 4, right? So it's hard for me to even imagine them in 16 years from now. It's just crazy. Like, who knows what the world's going to be like, and who knows if there's even going to be like wine as we know it. Who knows, right?
That's true.
Who knows what's going to happen in like 20 years? But listen, I've talked about this with my husband, and because I never drank in high school. Like I said, my husband grew up in a small upstate New York town. They would go to parties, they would drink, and his parents knew that they were going to a field and they were going to like drink and mess around, right? So I think, and listen, my son knows, he knows wine. He loves to smell. He has such a great sense of smell, which is very important in our industry and so the fact that he has like this really awesome sense of smell, I let him smell my wine all the time. He knows how to swirl. He can smell. He can tell the difference between a Cab and a Pinot Noir, and he's 4.
I was about to say the kid's 4, right? So I know adults who can't do that.
So listen, like it's interesting, right? Yeah, so awesome. I'm now thinking like, man, maybe he's a super smeller and he could be like this crazy sommelier somewhere and whatever. So honestly, I'm still the jury's still out, right? I don't know. I can't answer that question. My kids are so young. It's like, no I don't want these to. But I bet you anything. Listen, I bet you anything. I'm gonna be like, yup, have a sip. Like, what are you gonna do? Right? They're gonna do it anyway. I guess, so.
No, but I think that's awesome that and that you said your son is 4,
yeah.
And so now I'm picturing, here's this tiny person, right? And
you know what? I don't mean to interrupt, but
swirling.
It's kind of like if you introduce them at a young age in a very healthy way, and he knows that it's mommy's work, then and this is part of our lives. My husband loves wine too, and I think as long as you keep it in a very healthy manner and framed in a healthy way, then it's a good thing for them to be introduced to it. So it's not as big of a taboo when they do get to that point where they're like, now, do I think at a high school party he's going to be offered a single vineyard Pinot Noir? Probably not. Maybe he'll be the one that brings it, and it's like me standing, in the corner, like with my Pinot, so who knows?
And I just put that comment up real quick, and that was my philosophy. Annie was talking about so my daughter, she's 19, about to be 20, and having a drink with her dad while she's home from college.
Yeah.
I saw it as she put it, it's a lot less forbidden. It's not a hidden thing. She's not running out and like, hey, let me see what. But I was in college once. I know what the life is like, right? So you're out there and you're at a party and you're drinking, but hopefully the idea is, hey, you approach it from, as Annie said, healthy. You said, hey, this is mommy's work, a healthy mentality, that it's not a forbidden hidden thing.
Yeah.
And it becomes less of a, oh, I got to do this because they're saying I can't. I want to pivot to this next one, because this always seems to come up. So what is it like for you when you attend social gatherings and alcohol is not present?
You know, I would hope that, like, if I'm at a social gathering, I'm there for the social gathering and not for the booze, right? Unless it's a wedding. If you have it, I mean, listen, don't make me sit through a wedding sober. I'm sorry. That has happened to me one time. I was a guest at a Mormon wedding, and I didn't know anybody, and it was a friend of mine who was in the wedding, a girlfriend of mine, and she's like, hey, listen, do you want to come to this wedding? It's going to be fun. I'm like, great. And I get there, and there's no booze, and I don't know anybody, and I was like 24 years old, and I'm like, well, this isn't fun. That being said, typically, you know what, if I don't need alcohol to have fun, and I don't need alcohol to, like, socialize and enjoy where I'm at. So, hopefully that answers the question. Like, I'm there for the event. I'm not there for the booze usually, unless it's
a lot of unless it's a wedding, because a lot of people do talk about that. They're like, is there an open bar? Is there going to be at least something to drink? Because a lot of people use it to kind of create that.
Right.
So this leads me to my next question. Do you find yourself being critical at events when alcohol is served, such as this is the alcohol? So I do that with food, right? Because I'm been in the restaurant industry, food and beverage, even with alcohol, and I'm sitting there going, oh man, is this really what they're serving? Oh man,
it's so easy to make this right. You know what I mean? Like, it's so easy to make this better. Why isn't this better? Yeah, it's a curse, right, Dave? Because it's like a switch you can't flip off. So it's like once you know too much, you can't unknow that.
I know it. Mm-hmm.
So I do this all the time, and I just can't stop. I'll sit down at a restaurant and I'll look at the wine list, and because I've been in the industry for so long, I know the wholesale pricing of a lot of wines out there. And then I see the prices that they are on the wine list, and I'm like, oh, that's a great deal. We should get that. Or, oh my gosh, that's 6 times. I just know, I know too much. It's just ruined everything. No. But I do find myself kind of like critiquing places. And also a large part of my job for many, many years, and it is still to some extent, was going with sales reps into their accounts with them. So I have seen, you name it, every single retail account, every single restaurant, from the very highest end to the very lowest end, all over the country. And so I've seen a lot, and having that experience, just like you said, you being in the F&B world, being in the back, behind the curtain, things that most consumers don't know. And there's things that I wish I could yell to the other tables, and things that, it's hard to not be critical when you're in this industry and you're passionate about it.
Yeah. So kind of touching on that, I've been out, and, when you see the cost by the glass and the bottle cost, so you sit there, and I've seen some people when they're like, oh yeah, we'll go ahead and get a bottle. And I'm like, man, you know how much this place pay for that bottle, and you're going to get a bottle and pay that. And they're like, well, how much do you think they paid? I said, usually it's the glass price is what they paid, because they at least want to make up the glass, right? So if you're the only person that gets a glass, they've at least made up the cost of that bottle. And when I said that, they went, oh my God, I've been paying so much for bottles. And I was like, that's just the way it is.
Well, it makes sense to get, they price it out where it makes sense to buy the bottle, right? Because they'll price the whole bottle at what they would price maybe 3 of the glasses or whatever, right? So it's like they work it out so you do buy the whole bottle. But yeah, I mean, it's just, it's interesting. A lot of it too, for me, to be honest with you, is not so much like the wine list, but the debate is boosting my alcohol consumption.
I had to put it up there because I know the debate's going on tonight, and a lot of people are tuning in.
I mean, when we sign off here, I'm going to catch the last half hour of it, and listen, for everyone that's following along, Trust
And
me.
you have yours. Yeah, I know there's probably a lot of
Crazy.
people whose alcohol consumption is, they
Man.
may have even gone to the store and bought a little extra just to have it ready for the night, right? So
Yeah, I
I'm
think so.
sorry, I
I
didn't
think
mean to
we
cut
just
you off,
kind of
but
boost
that,
some sales.
oh my God, here's another wine Trump wins. So, wine trumps Trump. I think that's great. Oh man. So I had to throw that up there. Um,
Oh, it's funny.
but the whole idea of just the alcohol consumption, and during this period, which is the next transition we'll kind of be talking about. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on that because I find myself doing that. Even though I don't consider myself necessarily a beverage expert, it's something that I do know enough that it triggers those thoughts. And then sometimes I have those friends that don't make it any easier. And they're like, "Hey, so what do you think of this?" And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
"What do you mean?" They're like, "Is this a good thing to get? Is this a good thing that they have?" And I'm like, get what you want to get. Some people enjoy, a $5 bottle of wine, and some people don't. It's a taste preference.
You know,
So
the takeaway on this segment that I want people to walk away with is that the most expensive wine on a wine list may not always be the best. So, I mean, don't equate price with
excuse me.
quality. So, I mean, which a lot of people do. That's not always the case. In fact, it's usually not the case. So.
So moving on to the next little piece, I wanted to get into a little conversation about kind of the COVID aspect, but also move into just some different consumer trends. So the first question I have for you is, how do you think COVID has changed consumer trends or drinking habits?
It has changed things so dramatically. I was able to take a look at some of the latest Nielsen data. So Nielsen data is a measure of grocery scan data taken from grocery chains all over the country. And I was looking at, and part of my job is to look at this stuff and really kind of decode it and apply it to my markets and see how I can strategize and make my company successful in this ever-changing world, right? So for me, it was really eye-opening taking a peek at the last 52 weeks of scan data, which would encompass, much of pre-COVID, and then taking and comparing that to the latest 4-week data, which is, I think, would say, through COVID, and now that's like the COVID result, right?
Okay.
So if I took a look at price range, because really what we're seeing in the industry is not only have people been drinking more, and in fact, March and April, when people were panicking and stocking up on toilet paper, they were also stocking up on wine. So wine sales jumped 85% March, April. I mean, it was just, we had out of stocks. Distributors were scrambling. It was almost like unforeseen. Um, and and it never really stopped. It plateaued a little bit, but it never really stopped. What was interesting to note was the price points that have changed and what people are drinking. So, for instance, the most consumers over the past 52 weeks drank something that cost between $10 and $12.99. The fastest growing segment was an $18 to $20 price point. If you just look at the last 4-week data, most consumers are still buying that $10 to $12.99 bottle of wine, but that share is smaller. The fastest growing category for price point is the $50 to $99 price point. It's growing at 54%. $30 to $49 grew 39%. So think about it. What that means is that I think a lot of the pantry loading is done. While 3 liters, the wine in a box, right, is still ginormous, still
Yeah.
huge. We cannot keep them in stock. My company produces some 3-liter boxes. We cannot keep them in stock. It's insane. And while the consumers are still driven towards that, I think what we're seeing is people choosing to take some of that disposable income that they have from not going out to eat all the time, and they're choosing to invest it in nicer bottles of wine. So rather than buying 5 bottles of wine that cost $10, they're choosing to buy maybe 2 bottles of wine that costs $25 or 1 bottle of wine that costs $50. And they're choosing to sort of enjoy it and make it more of a special occasion at home. And just asking my friends, just taking a little, I guess you could say, like, consumer poll, right? That's what a lot of my friends have been saying, is that, hey, we're not going on date nights anymore. We're not going to restaurants like we used to. The flip side of that coin is a lot of people are laid off and furloughed. And so you have people that have economic hardship right now. And what we're seeing in those consumers is that they're still buying wine. And they're still buying wine. It's just they're buying different things. So they might be trending down more towards the $8 to $10 range, or 10 to 12 still. The thing about this industry is, in good times, people drink a lot, and in bad times, people still drink. So it's really just a measure of what, when, and how they're consuming their beverages.
So it's funny you mentioned that, because I did find an article, and I want to read a little bit of it. And it talks about the potential hangover for the alcohol market. And it says consumers are just building up their home bars as they have to continue to shelter in place, even as COVID restrictions are being withdrawn. So this article talks about, they're starting to open up, but maybe consumer confidence in going back out is not there, even with bars, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even though bars are starting to open and some offering food, people are saying, you know what, I don't want to take a chance of going to a bar. Let me go ahead and just stockpile some stuff at home, or get some things to enjoy it at home. And I guess that's touching on what you're talking about. And, one of the comments did talk about self-care. So people just wanting to take care of themselves because they're stuck at home.
And treat themselves. Treat yourself.
Exactly,
we all have to take care of ourselves. And you know what? And a lot of people look forward to that glass of wine at the end of the night. And maybe now they want it to be something a little nicer, right? Because they want to treat themselves. So I think that's really, important to note. One thing that we have seen in the industry is sparkling wine sales the sales have boomed. It's seeing 34% growth right now across the board, where we usually don't see these kind of numbers more towards November, December, for obvious reasons, for New Year's and Christmas and all that, and Thanksgiving. So we're seeing a sparkling wine boom a lot earlier than we anticipated. And I think a lot of that is because people are just looking for anything to celebrate. I do think too, one of the things is, one of my distributors in Alabama brought this up. The election, doesn't matter what side you're on, you're going to be celebrating one way or another, right? People, or drinking your sorrows away, depends on what side you're on. But I think a lot of people are going to be having, like, maybe virtual election parties, or drinking themselves into a stupor if their candidate doesn't win. So I think we're going to see a little bit of a boom for the before the election, before even all of our holiday stuff.
So to touch on that, just some other things, and they're falling right into what you're talking about. They says 70% of the people surveyed in this report said that they increased their alcohol consumption because they just wanted to have a reason to relax. Yeah. So even though they were home, they felt they couldn't relax. And maybe they were in a situation like I am. So I went from not having a home office to setting up a home office. Yeah. And working even at hours. Yeah. So working in hours that normally I wouldn't work as an educator. So here I am, midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was up doing work stuff. Yeah. So to help wind down, even while I'm doing all that, let me go ahead and go grab something to drink while I'm doing this, and then go to sleep at 2, wake up at 10 the next day, and kind of get in that swing. It shifted. But this was a big thing from this survey, that 70% of the people said they just needed more alcohol consumption just to relax and unwind. And
think about it too, like people's commutes now. So sometimes some people would commute an hour each way, right? You have 2 extra hours in your day. So you have more time at the end of the day to sit and make a craft cocktail, or or learn how to make a new cocktail, or dive into different wines, or dive into different cocktails and stuff. So I do see a lot of that as a huge trend right now, for sure.
So is that one of the things you're going to do tonight? You're going to demo a cocktail for us?
No, I'm just gonna have my nice coffee, maybe watch the buffet, go to bed early.
So, which now this takes me to my next little question, and it's going to tie us. I think this one is directly tying us together, right? What I refer to as the White Claw experiment, and the reason I refer to it as the White Claw experiment is I remember a conversation you were having in my class, and you were talking about the hard seltzers. And I do recall just being completely opposed to even the thought of trying these.
You were really against it. Yeah.
I was. Yeah. And I remember
happy.
We talked about it, and the students in the class were like, oh, no, they're good. A lot of the athletes that were in the class, they were like, oh, Rivera, you're missing out. And I'm thinking there's no way. So I remember texting you that day. I was in the store, and I was like, Allie, I'm gonna make the jump, and I'm gonna go ahead and try this based on the conversation we had in class. And I got a pack of White Claw. I try it and absolutely loved it. And I was like, man, this is really good. So my question to you is, can you just give us a little bit of your thoughts and insights on these low alc, really what I like to also refer to as alternative alcohol options that are out there? What's driving that market?
So there's a few things that are driving that market. And actually, one of them, we have the millennials to thank, because they alone have basically created a new category in how we view alcohol. And that's the health and wellness category. And, that didn't exist when, you and I were in our 20s, right? Like, we weren't concerned when we were in our teens and 20s. We weren't thinking man, how many calories does this Zima have? That wasn't in our thought, right? But the beauty about the millennials and how they think now is they're really in tune to health and wellness. And what that has done to the alcohol industry is really driven this whole low alc, low calorie beverage trend. And so that's kind of where your White Claws, your Trulies, that sort of thing. My company actually we partnered with Weight Watchers, and we created a can wine spritzer called Sense. And it's 4 Weight Watcher points. It's 100 calories, 4.5% alcohol. And so, so you're getting into that kind of health and wellness trend as well. Also with cans, so cans have been trending up even before COVID, but once cans are just on fire. My company sells house wine, which is the #1 canned wine in the country right now. And in Florida, my company also represents day drinking, which is in conjunction with the country music band Little Big Town. And they have a song called Day Drinking. So they came up with this brand, we produce it for them, and it's the #1 canned wine in Florida. So, and in Florida, just talking Florida specifically now, in Florida, the 375 milliliter can, which is the size of house wine, day drinking, which 375 milliliters equals half a bottle of wine. So 1 can equals 2 glasses. That category is growing at 92% in Florida in the last 4 weeks. So really what that tells me is that people are wanting that grab and go convenience option. They're wanting to not really think too hard about, if they're going to go on their boat, because listen, boat sales have increased exponentially in Florida because of COVID. It's a socially distanced, safe thing to do. And it feels like you're actually on vacation and not in your home office, right? So what's easier to bring on a boat? A can of wine or a bottle of wine that you need a bottle opener for, et cetera, et cetera.
So just to touch in a little bit on what you were saying. So the White Claw experiment, that started there, but then I also tried the Corona one.
Yeah.
I tried the Bud Light, I think one. Then I tried Truly. I tried High Noon, I think is what it is.
High Noon, yeah. So Truly and High Noon are my two.
And High Noon is that's the vodka based one, correct?
Yeah, High Noon is vodka based, but it's still 4.5% alcohol. So a lot of these, yeah, great point, Annie. Glass isn't allowed in pools or on beaches, and also, with COVID, just getting back to the can idea of this, with COVID in restaurants too, it's a very low touch option. So if you're worried about one bottle of wine being opened that you're touching and then being poured out amongst different tables or anything like that, I mean, whatever you feel about COVID, a lot of people are looking for that like low touch option when dining out. So cans are a perfect solution for the on premise. But yeah, I mean, these seltzers are such a hot category right now. Everyone's coming out with them. So if you took a look at the grocery stores maybe 6 months ago, you would have White Claw, probably Truly, a couple on there. You look at the grocery stores now, and there are so many brands that have gotten into the category. What I think is going to happen is the category is going to get really saturated, and you're going to start seeing the lesser ones that maybe couldn't keep up or the quality is not there. You're going to see them start to kind of thin out. The herd will thin out. I've already seen it kind of start to do that.
See, and I agree with you so much on there, because I was going through that experimental phase. I was like, let me try all of these.
Yeah.
And then I've narrowed it down to a couple that I really enjoy. And
So
one
so
I do like White Claw, but then I recently just tried one. I think it's a wine base. Is it Barefoot? I think is one I tried. I really enjoyed that one. It's a little bit of a sweeter taste, which I enjoyed. But it also has that wine taste. So I like that one. I do like the White Claw, and there's certain flavors. So the watermelon, like, you put it in the freezer and you take it out before it gets kind of too cold, but it's so cold. And the reason I like those is, and I know this may sound crazy, is also I think the perception of it. So drinking a White Claw in the middle of the day during the week, it has such a less negative feel to it, right? So I'm home all day and I'm like, oh, it's a Wednesday. Let me go ahead and cut the grass. I have nothing else to do. So I cut the grass and it's 12:30. I come inside and I was like, man, what do I want to drink? Oh, let me go ahead and grab one of these White Claws and drink it. I'm not sitting there going, oh, damn, man, I'm drinking a White Claw. Right? It's like, hey, I'm drinking a White Claw. Everybody's like, hey, drinking a White Claw. It's such a less negative feel to it.
Yes, no, 100%. One of my closest friends, Ashley, she works for Duckhorn Vineyards out of Napa, and she lives in New York City. So she's been an interesting person to talk to throughout this whole COVID experience, because she's in the hotspot, thick of it, right? And she's in the industry, so she's seeing different things. And her and I have become we have a Truly problem. So I did my experiment. I wanted to try every single seltzer and canned wine and everything on the market. And I was like, this is market research. And I just fell in love with Truly. High Noon is a close second, but we fell in love with Truly, and she feels the same way. And we talked about it, and the quality's there, but also it's 4.5, I think it's 4.6 or 4.5% alcohol. And her and I both have young children. And so, especially for me, my husband's on deployment right now. I can have a Truly when I'm done with work, and still go and bathe my young children, put both of them to bed, do that whole thing. Yeah. Whereas if I had a big glass of wine or something like that, I would feel differently, right? So we joke around all the time. We're like, it's the mind. It's it's perfect for moms, because you can still you can have one and still parent and not feel bad about it. So it is it's interesting to see that trend, and I love it. I think it's great, and there's room for wine, but there's room for good quality of these spritzers, and I'm all for it.
Cool. So moving on to this next little piece, we have a couple of I think very different talking pieces coming up. So you've talked a lot about a lot of different things. Is there one thing that maybe the average person, such as like myself or anybody watching, that you would say this is definitely a trend to watch out for, because this is going to be the next big thing that you see?
So, you and I had talked about where people are buying their wine now, and particularly in Florida, right? So I think one of the trends that we're going to see is we're going to see a lot of these, higher end convenience stores like Gate, Daily, like if anyone knows what a Wawa is, or Tom Thumb, these sort of like chains that 10 years ago I would never go to a convenience store to buy liquor. I mean, I don't know. I just wouldn't go to a convenience store to buy wine. But now you do, because the consumer wants more of a quick grab and go situation, especially right now. We're looking for convenience, and we're looking for value too. And so I do think that we're going to start seeing a lot of convenience store chains really up their game. We're seeing it now. Dailies actually starting next week just took in 2 kinds of my house wine and 2 kinds of my day drinking into their top 50 stores. 7-Eleven, my company produced a private label for. So they have like 4 SKUs of house wine in a can, and we produced it's by Day Drinking. It's a black cherry flavored can of day drinking that's exclusive to 7-Eleven. So convenience stores are now getting into the private label game. So I think it's really interesting to see where that goes. And I think people are going to have to get rid of anything they've ever thought about a convenience store, kind of get over that and go check it out. And then also delivery too. We're going to see, I think a new trend is going to be an uptick in different ways of getting our alcohol. So Drizzly, other delivery services. I think grocery stores are also going to start really upping their game in terms of wine and alcohol delivery as well.
I love some of these comments that are coming through. So, COVID plus kids all day. Yeah. So no, I can't. I can't say I get it, but I get it.
Oh yeah.
I like this comment right here. Cracker Barrel is going to serve beer and wine. So that is something that I did see, and that's big, right? So here you have Cracker Barrel. You can go in and really, if you want to, you can order the breakfast, and you could have a wine with breakfast if you want to. Yeah.
I'm all for it. Go right ahead. I love it. That's great.
Another thing I remember, the first time I saw wine at a convenience store, I want to say I was in Greenville, North Carolina. I went into a Sheetz, and they were selling the little, like, you can buy a glass of wine, and it had the top, and it was kind of wrapped up. Yeah. And you can go buy a couple of those and take them. And I thought, are they really selling wine by the glass in a convenience store? And now, years later, 5 years later, here we are. It's kind of the big thing, as you said. So I'm going to hold you to that, as that's your big prediction. And I'm already starting to see it because it's big. I'm a big fan of whenever I go by Buc-ee's or any of these places, and you see sales all over the place. So that's a big thing. And one of the last topics I wanted to get your thoughts on. So the debate is going on tonight. How do you think the results of the election could impact the beverage industry?
Listen, it's very clear that right now in the current situation in Napa. So for those of you who don't know, there's major fires going on in California right now. There's always been fires. There's always been a fire season, but I know people that have lived out their whole lives, and the past couple of fire seasons have been much, much more extreme than normal. Doesn't matter what side of the coin you're on. It's pretty clear that there's certain candidate for president that maybe believes in climate change, and maybe there's another candidate that has maybe some skepticism or different views on it, right? So, but you can't deny that right now we are seeing the effects of climate change on our industry. I'll actually, besides Napa Valley, I'll give you a perfect example. So about 20 years ago, England, the UK, they've had some vineyards here and there, but it's been too cold, so they really could only grow like sparkling whites. So like just like a champagne, but not grown in Champagne, France, right? And only then in small amounts. But now, because the climate has grown warmer there, they're able to produce more Chardonnays, a little bit of Pinot Gris. And so we are seeing this market shift in degrees of what we call like diurnal temperature and degree days during a harvest. So those are climbing upwards, and even the slightest tick can really have an effect on how long it takes a Cabernet grape to ripen, or could a Pinot Gris grape grow here, or is it too hot to grow here now? And so we're starting to kind of slowly see that in the industry. Regions are kind of shifting what they typically grew to maybe what can be grown now because things have gotten warmer. I also think too, a lot of people right now are uncertain about what's going to happen. There's not much clarity about the future. So when there's not, like I said, in March and April, there was like that pantry loading, and then it kind of plateaued. I think people are going to be a little nervous until after the election. And a lot of people lost their jobs, and a lot of people are nervous about what's going to happen, come December, January. So I think there's a lot of uncertainty. I also think too, because of all the hardships, that there's going to be less room for these smaller esoteric brands. So much like in the on-premise world in the restaurants, where a lot of places close down, and really the ones that are going to survive might be just the big chains, or might be the restaurants that have a lot of money behind them. What we're going to see in the wine world is these really cool, smaller, family-owned wineries, esoteric wines, not make it through. And what we're going to be left with is like the chain version of wine, just like the Gallo brands, the Constellation brands, the Treasury, all these larger companies with these more sort of generic, you can find them in any grocery store type of brands. Not that that's bad, it's just kind of sad for a wine geek like me, where I'm a little nervous about, some smaller families, vineyards' ability to survive this or not. So, there's a lot of things going on, and it'll be really interesting to see the impact of the election.
Thank you so much for your thoughts on that. So as we start to wrap up, I want to give you the opportunity to go ahead and give your final thoughts.
Well, I just want to say that I hope everyone's staying safe and healthy. Go in Florida. Listen, restaurants are now able to see at 100% capacity, which I want to root for, and which is really great. But I want everyone to be safe. I want everybody to make good decisions. And support your on-premise account, support your favorite restaurant, and you can do that by buying a gift card, by doing takeout, sitting outside. There's a lot of ways to support your restaurant and feel like you're giving back and stay safe as well. And for any girl that's out there considering going into this industry, it's a male-dominated industry. Just do not back down. Be secure in yourself and confident in yourself, because if you're a woman who knows their stuff, and maybe looks can maybe get you in the door, but it's not going to get you a sale. And so I think it's really important in any industry that's male-dominated to stay true to yourself, to be confident, and to knowledge is power, and to really have that power and use it effectively. And keep drinking wine.
Oh, there we go. Alley, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for those final thoughts. Looking forward to having you back on campus once we kind of get to that place. But in the meantime, looking forward to having you on campus in a virtual standpoint. But thank you again so much for your time.
Thank you.
I always learn so much from you with this. So looking forward to continuing the conversations with you. And I hope you and your family are doing well. And again, please pass along to your husband. Thank him for
thank you so much
for his service. We appreciate it, and good luck to you as a mom with 2 young children. I know it's crazy. Right? I know, right? So, and I hope you enjoy your wine and get a chance to enjoy the last little bit of the debate. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up here, but I hope you have a good evening.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone.
So to wrap things up here on Roll the Dice with Dave, I just want to let everybody know next week we're going to be talking with mompreneurs. Not only are these women unbelievable mothers and just carry the household forward, we are going to also talk to them about their at-home businesses. So there's a lot of women out there that are just unbelievable and are amazing, and I just want to feature them. There are so many out there. So I'm going to have a few on the show, and we're going to talk about not only how they manage to run their businesses successfully, but also how they manage to be the glue that keeps their family together. So I salute all the mompreneurs out there. Looking forward to this conversation next week. Also, please don't hesitate to reach out. Again, please like my fan page, Roll the Dice with Dave. Also go out to my YouTube channel and subscribe. You could also find me on Facebook. David Rivera Jr. is my profile. I am on Twitter at El Leon de Flagler, and I'm also on Instagram, Rivera D, the Flagler Prof. So I hope everybody has a good night. I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. I really did learn a lot. And don't hesitate to go out there and enjoy yourselves when it comes to alcohol consumption, but please make sure you do it responsibly and in a healthy way. Again, let's be the change we want to see in the world. You guys have a great night.